Hey everybody, I'm Jody-Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And today on UnSpun podcast, we are going to go deep into City Hall spin. It's like a washing machine spin cycle. There's so much going on just in the city of Vancouver, but we'll go beyond that as we see a bunch of journalists becoming hopeful counselors. I mean, there's that. More people crossing the aisle. Are we slow walking to a majority for Mark Carney and he's on his way to Norway? Plus, an excursion or a war in Iran, depending on who you ask. It's time for
UnSpun.
my intro was almost the entire length of
Yeah,
our
with this,
podcast.
and thanks for joining us there UnSpun.
George, let's start with what we were talking about last week with Sean Orr, the
Yes.
apology from the mayor for the current city councillor who the mayor accused of having handed out drugs
hmm
on Christmas, has since apologized both in person and publicly. And then I roll through my social media and I find a GoFundMe campaign
hmm
to sue the mayor. So the city councillor wants to raise money to sue the mayor for defamation. Thoughts?
Many thoughts. One is, okay, first of all, and I sent you a screen grab of a photo of Jean Swanson, I guess a couple years ago when she was a counselor and she was giving out drugs. Those who can see it, this is just a search Jean Swanson free drugs I typed in. So, it's a bit, yeah. So you're just showing it up for those who couldn't see that. There was, but just a screenshot. Just type in Jean Swanson free drugs, and you'll see a bunch of photos of Jean Swanson giving out drugs. Um, that was all about safe supply and all that stuff. And I interviewed her on CKNW at the time, and she had really, good arguments of why she was doing it and valid and a very interesting take. So I think this whole Sean Orr, I think there's some
What
kind
was
of
her take? Can you just give a brief, like when you say she had an
well,
interesting take, just
it's
top line it.
this. Yeah, well, it's the safe supply argument that we hear all the time, which clearly has failed significantly. But it's this
But the
assumption
argument
that
is,
people are dying from bad drugs. Is it worse to have them taking bad drugs and dying like crazy, or can we give them a safe supply and save lives and control the situation? I think that's basically, we need to control our drug supply, make it safe. We do it with
right,
alcohol, so
right.
that's kind of the base argument. Why
Okay.
stop there, right? Um, so I think there's this whole argument and this whole lawsuit thing, and we'll get into that too. But I guess there was some kind of, I think, migration of images in people's minds that the current city councilor, Sean Orr, was maybe Jean Swanson. I think that's kind of what happened, maybe. And it wasn't, I don't know, maybe Ken Sim saw a photo. He says he saw a photo. He didn't remember who showed it to him. But he was shown at an event. That's where that all came from. I just think it's, that game you play with when you're a kid and you say something at the beginning of a circle.
Telephone,
Yeah, telephone.
telephone. Yeah. We played
I,
it at every family event and not ever did it end the way it began.
I
Never
think
one
this is
time.
a game of telephone. So, and Ken Sims apologized multiple times and in
Yeah,
multiple,
multiple times.
like we talked about last week, like, okay, the world's worst press conference.
It
So
really
now
was.
but now Sean Orr's suing him and got a GoFundMe campaign, which it also has to, the questions should be raised about campaign finance. Where does that fit into that? Because obviously this is a campaign ploy for, him and for Cope and this party that he's a part of. Um, and the city of Vancouver is required to support Ken Sim's legal case, so that you're generally covered, even if it is against each other. Um, when I was
So
on council,
taxpayers would pay for that.
yeah, when I was on council, I got attacked a few times by the
I
mayor.
remember. Yeah.
And he said some things in council. He called me a homophobe. He called me
Racist.
a racist.
Yeah.
He called us murderers. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm like, whatever. Like,
It's hyperbole.
yeah, and you go after them with intellect as much as I have,
Right.
and you
As you
use
do.
it. Sure, you use it politically. Certainly,
For sure.
Melissa definitely worked on the murder comment a lot, and she
Right.
really embraced them
Melissa
calling her
DiGenova, for those
Melissa
just joining
DiGenova,
us. Yeah.
city
Yeah. Just
councilor.
going
She and
back to,
I,
yeah.
yeah. So she and I were called murderers by
Yeah.
by a councillor on the other side of the table. So, and you kind of just, as a politician, sorry, but you're just put on another level where you have to just kind of accept this madness that you live in. And
Right.
if you're going to sue for every time somebody says something a bit crazy about you, you're going to be suing a lot of the time. So
Yeah.
I don't think it'll succeed. You can think of, Jeff Meggs, was went to court over a conversation that happened in a union hall that was recorded about him making apparently promises or saying committing to some ideas or something, and that didn't
Allegedly.
even succeed. So,
Right.
it's very challenging to make this work because at the end of the day, in a democracy, your choice is on election day to make a decision about whether you
Right.
want that politician to continue or not. That's the basic premise of the whole democratic system. And if we end up mired in politics or in lawsuits over this,
Laws.
you just
Decades.
it just stops the whole process. So,
It stops the process.
I think that just vote the bums out, as the old cliche goes. So,
Right. Or in. Or
or in,
that's where you should have
vote
your
the bum,
say.
vote the bums in. I
Vote
love
the
it.
bums in, vote the bums out. But I mean, we've lost the plot societally, I think. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's not just city politics or federal politics, it's internationally. We've lost the plot on our opinions of the people who run for office and how we express ourselves about that. Because ultimately, the power is in your vote, the power is
Mhm.
in the ballot. So why would you drag anybody really from a voter's perspective? I get the politics, I get like going into a debate and whatever, and even the debates have lost the plot largely. I mean, we're pretty good in Canada, but I mean, I haven't
Mhm.
seen a debate in the United States that really tackled any subject matter of substance in a long time. But like when you brought this up to me, there's one, is it the Vancouver Liberal, Liberal Party of Vancouver, is that what they're called? Like
Mhm. Yeah.
there's one candidate, is it Jessica Walton? You were telling me about this, and she said um, publicly that she's a socialist.
Yeah, in her video, and yeah, this is on X, Twitter. Um, First of all, I'm appalled by some of the comments, like just attacking her, as a person, like just ridiculous. Like, come on,
Right. To
people.
my point of, why don't you just not vote for her then? Like,
Yeah, and
stop the harassment,
it's
stop the
just ridiculous.
disgusting comments about her
Really is.
appearance, or if you don't agree with her politics, don't vote for her. And if you
Yeah,
spread the word to your family and friends to not vote for her, she doesn't win. Like,
yeah.
campaign on behalf of the person that you do agree with. That's the way this is supposed to work. And there are, lots of, I mean, honestly, there are so many people running. It's hard to keep track. It really is hard
Mhm.
to keep track. So,
Yeah, and if you want to say you're a socialist in Vancouver, good luck. I think right now, probably not the most popular belief system as far as the way the pendulum is currently swinging. Even Mark Carney's figured that out federally that you got to swing to the right now, otherwise, you know,
center,
yeah.
swing to the center. It
So
brings
well, he's definitely,
everybody to the middle. He
yeah,
is the most conservative liberal leader ever, and he's bringing the Conservative Party more to the center to become the most liberal of conservatives, except for the fringe. Like, it really is. But I think that's the closer. Every day we get closer to having a government that's all on the same side, so we can start fighting what's external. So we can
yeah.
discuss and fix things internally. Wouldn't that be amazing in city politics? It's a bit wild. But the two more things we want to talk about, two more candidates leaving journalism, headed into their respective battles municipally. We've got Frances Bula in Vancouver, and Janet Brown, of course, is in the
Yeah.
race in Surrey, right?
Janet Brown announced a while ago, and Frances Bula this week announced that she's running for council. For those who don't know, Frances Bula, she's been a civic affairs reporter for years, 20 years,
Yeah,
I think.
decades. Yeah.
And hardcore, when Frances calls you and you're a politician, it's like, oh shit, what does
Yep.
Frances want?
Yep.
So, and having been a journalist myself, uh, and then being a politician, but also having a business and a marketing as a marketer, it's a good skill. Journalism is a good skill to have because as a politician, because of the understanding of how to read reports
Right.
and get to the meat of it and understand what the issues are and distill that. I don't know if it helps you as a retail person, politician. There's two kinds of politicians that I often talk about. There's the policy wonk, and then the retail kind of politician. And seldom are you both. And no offense to Frances, she definitely is not a retail politician. I know Frances quite well. She'll be smiling when she has to, but it's not easy going to events and being all smiley and happy and chatting
No,
with people about,
no, she's
it's
not a small talker.
yeah. And
No,
so she's definitely more of a policy person, which you always need. You need a
yeah,
balance
so
in
smart.
council.
Yeah, she's so
Um,
smart.
but
So is
I
Janet,
think
but Janet's
they're
Janet's
both
got the Janet's got the other way because Janet's very charismatic in Surrey
true.
and like a dog with a bone on a story, and no story is too small. And like
Yeah.
I've worked with Janet for many, many years. I consider her a friend of mine. So, and I don't live in Surrey, and I'm not campaigning on anybody's behalf, but I will tell you that when it comes to, I don't know Janet as well as I know Frances. I've met Frances Bula on a number of occasions. I hold her in very high regard. I think she is exceptional as a journalist.
Hmm.
Stands out from the crowd in terms of due diligence and reporting on things that are quite frankly um, a little unpopular and a little scary to talk about. Like
Yeah.
she gets into the weeds on things. Fearless, I will
Yeah,
say.
she's great.
Fearless.
We'll see as a politician. And
Yeah.
the one thing that I will say though, regarding celebrity politicians, there's people saying, "Oh, it's no brainer. She's going to win." That's not how it works. It's a
That's not how
rising
it
tide,
works.
right,
Yeah,
raises all boats.
that's
And
right.
she's running for council. She's not running for mayor. If she's running for mayor, then that might be a different story where celebrity status does matter. But if you're running
Right.
for council,
Yeah.
you are this at the whim of the leadership and the leader of the party, and whether they resonate with the people and where the people are at that time, related certainly to the party in power, which in this case is ABC in Vancouver. And all the stuff with Ken Sim right now, is it enough to make him resign? I don't think so. Is it enough to potentially
No.
even make him lose? I don't think so. At this point, every single, as far as I can tell, of the opposition parties, except for maybe Colleen Hardwick, and I don't even know where she is on the political spectrum with Team. Are they center left? I don't know what they are. They seem right wing, but then they also seem left wing. So they're kind of whatever. But everybody else seems center or left of center. So this is good news for ABC.
Right. Splitting
And
the
so,
vote in all ways. Right.
yeah, so we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. But I don't think people should assume just because everybody knows who Frances Bula is. And by the way, not everybody reads the Globe Mail. So
True.
uh,
I'd also like to
not a,
point out
yeah,
that when you go to vote this fall in the municipal election, whatever municipality you might live in, you do not have to check a box, more than one box.
right.
You can just vote for a counselor. You can just vote for the mayor. You can just vote for the school board. You don't have to go down and be like, who do I recognize?
Yeah. Choose your top
Right?
five or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's a really important. It does not spoil your ballot if you just check off the box that matters most to you. Of course, you should do your due diligence and vote more broadly if you can do that, but don't just guess. And some people do rely on, well, they're going to know who I am. I mean, how many times you and I both get asked all the time, are you running for mayor? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No,
I know.
I'm
It's funny though,
not.
when I ran in 2011, I won, which was a surprise to everyone. But
Yeah.
I also ran my own ad campaign and I own
Yeah.
an advertising company. My
Heard
last name was
communication.
Affleck, which helped, which was top of the ballot. But I also had, if you look at the voting, if you look at the actual places people voted, you can actually look if you go into the maps of any city and see exactly how people voted for every single candidate. You can see it all, it's all mapped out. And you can see these pockets where I came in top, which was one was area False Creek, which is where my kids went to school and I was very involved in the pack. But
Right.
False Creek is very left wing. The area my kids were in, the sort of southeast, southwest southwest Falls Creek. And so I did really, really well there, and I did really, really well in Yaletown because that's where I live, and I
Right.
marketed it myself that way. I marketed and so a lot of people who wouldn't generally have voted for me or the party I was in did vote for me. And that's how I won. So if you're
Right.
when you're
Because they were like me. They don't vote for the party. They vote for the person.
That's right.
Because
That's right. In
I
that
wouldn't have
case,
considered myself an NPA person, but I would have voted for you.
that's right. So that's how you win. That's how you win. You find those opportunities. You don't win just because you're a celebrity, because there were people that were way better known than me
Right.
in that election in 2011 that did not win. Mike Klassen for one. He was, you
Right.
know, the city that City Hall,
He's a
whatever they
current
call
city
it,
councillor now.
city, yeah, that thing called City Caucus,
Yeah.
very well known publication that he was the head of, and he
Yeah.
was, you know, very outspoken. And he didn't win in 2011, and I did. So, and it's because I looked at these micro markets, micro as we call in marketing, micro voting areas, you know, that you can win at. And so, Frances Bula, as celebrity as she is, um, can she pull, you know, the West Side? Can she? And that's
Right.
where I think if she wants to win, she needs Dunbar, and
Yeah.
Dunbar does read the Globe Mail actually. So, you know, maybe,
Dunbar
maybe,
definitely is a Globe and Mail group.
yeah.
Let's move to federal politics. Oh, I just want one more note actually on local. Well, I guess this is provincial. Is you know, Richard Zussman, our great colleague, media colleague, left Global as the legislative reporter a number of months back. He's gone into the private sector in communications. Ben O'Hara Byrne has just been announced as his replacement. Ben O'Hara Byrne, the national weekend morning uh, host on CKNW. Rob Fay is going to move into Ben's spot, and O'Hara Byrne moves to Victoria. He has lived in Victoria before, and he was a bureau reporter in China for a number of years prior to coming to CKNW. So he does have depth when it comes to covering politics at all levels. So
Cool.
just a note on that. And now I want to talk about crossing the aisle. We've talked about crossing the aisle before. So many people are like, it's morally wrong. And it's like, it's morally wrong when it happens to you when it's not your party, but you know, it's not morally wrong because, you know, your party, come on over here and be a part of us. So this puts Mark Carney's Liberals within, what is it, 2 seats of a majority now? Is it 2 or 1?
No, maybe
For
is
Q.
it two? Maybe it's one.
Close.
I think if he
Is it?
wins that by-election in Quebec, he has a majority.
That's right. There you go. How do you
I'm
feel
not.
about it?
I'm not a fan of crossing the floor. Not a
Right.
fan. I believe that in your riding, people voted for you first and foremost. If you look at how polling works, you quite often if you do polling, you'll do a person and a political party. And if you do like a person by themselves, and if you pull that person, you know how it changes the way people decide on that person a lot. So when you and people vote for political parties, they vote party focused. That's how
Yeah.
people vote. They don't know who necessarily even who they're voting for. It explains why Hetty Fry keeps winning. God knows why. If anybody had a choice in this riding that I know of, they would never vote for Hetty Fry. But this riding is very liberal, and so it's a very federal liberal riding. And so where I live, and therefore Hetty Fry keeps winning. Nobody
Right.
can
Because
explain it.
everybody's like, we're just voting liberal, liberal,
Yeah,
liberal,
pretty
liberal.
much
Hit
because
the
we
button,
can't
hit the
vote
button, hit the
conservative.
button, hit the button, hit the button.
Yeah.
So
So crossing the floor,
Idlout,
I
Lori
you
Idlout
know
is her name. And
yeah, so
she,
I'm not a fan. I think you gotta,
right.
and I think the challenge is that they're not seeing change at the top with the conservatives. They're disappointed in that leadership. But then you got to change within. If you join this party and you ran and you won, whether
Got
NDP
it.
or conservative, then
I want to put
you got
some context around this. We
yeah,
got it. You disagree with it. I totally
yeah.
got it. So, just to confirm, just looking at if the Liberals win 2 of 3 by-elections set for April 13th, they will win a majority because of the Liberals announcing that Nunavut's Lori Idleout would leave the NDP caucus to join the Liberals, the first New Democrat to cross the floor, following 3 Conservatives into the government caucus. And it was interesting. I did watch her press conference, and what she basically said is, and actually I got a quote here, with new threats against our sovereignty and pressures on the well-being of people through the North, we need a strong and ambitious government that makes decisions with Nunavut, not only about Nunavut. The success of that work needs to be all of our voices. And she said in the statement, and personal reflection, blah, blah, blah. But basically, in a nutshell, it was that the NDP seats were shrinking, and the um, the polling across the country on the NDP as they exist today is on the nosedive as opposed to the upside. She's looking at, I need to protect my people. I think when you look at crossing the floor and you don't like it, and I hear you when you say that, but in listening to her, it was one of the first that I was like, actually, this one makes sense to me because she's like, I need to protect my people and I need to protect them now, and they can decide in the next election. But none of it is a bit of a different animal when we're talking about, you know, how much the Northern Pass is so politicized and such a target right now on a global stage, and Greenland and Norway and Denmark and la la la. Like there's just a lot going on there. And to that, here's my segue. Prime Minister Carney is in the north right now. He flew there today, and then he will stop there, have some meetings there, and then he'll be off to Norway to speak with them. I saw the Norwegian energy minister on CBC National News this morning, and he was very informative, but basically talking about oil.
Well, yes. Before you get started, I just want to just respond to the NDP. I just feel like just one last point about, okay, so you can stay in the party and leave the caucus and say, I'm going to be voting independently. I'm still NDP, but I'm going to make my decision outside the caucus because I want to make sure I make the decisions for the people in my riding specifically, not on a national level for the NDP. I'm an NDPer for sure, but right now we're rudderless. We're going through a process. I'm worried about it, and I'm worried about Nunavut. So for now, I'll probably be supporting a lot of the Liberal initiatives. And come election time, when that happens, I will make my decision then, and I will go through a process of where the public can make that decision. That's the spin I would take on it. To me, her points are, it's just spin, and that's what the show's about. And I think that's just excuses. And she wants to be in the party, and she'll probably get a cabinet post, yada yada yada. So there's that. But Norway, yes. How do you build pipelines, Norway? That's the question. How do we do that?
How does that little tiny country
make
have
so much
oil
money?
reserves? Yeah.
5 trillion in reserve, in cash in the bank, no debt, no deficits. Or they actually have had a couple of deficits recently, but they figured it out, and they protect their coastline, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that Mark Carney and Canada has a lot to learn from Norway's success of managing their resources and sharing the wealth. Although I must say, Norway is very, very expensive, and the taxes are very high.
Very high.
But
very high. But you also end up not having to spend your post-tax dollar on many of the things that you would, because they are included in what the government provides for you. Scandinavia is just so different in that way, and it scares people who want the free market, and we'll do that and we'll pay for our own and all that. But you and I both are quite familiar with Scandinavia.
yes,
You've lived in Denmark. My family is from there. But let's
Sweden.
talk about how the Norways of the world, being a target of Donald Trump because of the Nobel Peace Prize. Head scratcher. Spain is in the crosshairs now. Cuba's in the crosshairs now. Obviously, there's an excursion or a war, depending on who you ask. Have you seen the video that the Iranian government put out using Lego figures? It's like parody. It's going viral. It's wild. I watched it and I was like, is this real? Is this where we're at now? And then this morning I woke up to a tweet from the White House that rebuts it with their own Lego meme. God. It's like a game. It's like, what is happening? And one more thing that I saw today, which was really quite something. You saw the prayer session where all the pastors had their hands on Donald Trump in the White House. Did you see that in the Oval Office? And they were all having a moment. It looked very cultish. It was wild. Guess what's going viral in China? People are doing that. The people of China are creating their own, like at their desk in their office with all their coworkers doing that. I'm like, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. There are ships being blown up. They're like the energy crisis from the 1970s that I can't really remember because I was just a baby. But I remember the echo of, lining up for gas. Like miles long lineups for gas at pumps that were empty and it had run dry. The supplies are like, we are there. We are going. It's going to take months and months and months to recover from what has already happened. And we saw it in the Panama Canal when the Everly went sideways, how our supply chains were so screwed up because of that one barge. Like
and Scott Jensen, is it on CNN?
Yeah.
I hate that guy.
I hate that guy.
It's just his bugs me. And he's a huge Trumper, but only because he makes so much money off of it.
He does.
But he said immediately when this thing started happening there, he was like, oh, don't worry about, he was like, in this pompous face that he has. Ugh.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're all idiots. he
You got duped.
he said immediately, "Oh, don't worry about it, America. Don't worry about it. You know, we have our own oil and gas now. You know, don't worry about it." It's like, oh my God, if anybody wants to learn about oil and gas, Mr. Global, I don't know if you know Mr. Global, he's on Twitter and on Instagram, and he's amazing. He's an expert, and he goes
Hashtag
through, and he
Mr.
quite often
Global.
talks about Canada. But
Yes.
you know, this is the thing. It's like that's not how the world works, buddy. If oil and gas in China and the price goes up 50% and half their oil and gas to China, India is gone. That's where 50% of they get their oil and gas is from that area, from those ships to going through that strait. That has an impact on everything, everything,
They're going to lower
everything.
embargoes on Russia, and Russia's going to make a fortune that's going to prop it up so that they can fight harder in
Yes,
Ukraine, which the Iranians are like, it's like,
it's so naive to think that this means nothing, and
it is
that
so
you
naive
know.
because if this was an easy, we're in, we're out kind of war, which is what the narrative is from the White House and the Department of Defense or whatever we call Pete
Hmm.
Hegseth and his video gaming situation. Like, if it was that easy, it would have been done before. They didn't think through the echo effects of this, and now there are like reports of terrorist attacks being planned on in mainland in the United States, some targets in California. Like the amount of wrath that this decision by Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump really of like we're going in without a plan at all or even a reason. I don't know. Have you heard the actual reason? Because there's a new reason every day as to why uh, Israel and the
I
United
think
States
they
have gone
thought,
to war in Iran. But no,
well,
they
I
haven't
think.
stated it. We can guess. We can totally guess. But typically when you go to war, you kind of have an idea. Like even if it's weapons of mass destruction, we're going into Iraq, which was a total fallacy, but stated, right? And that war went on for how long and how many
Well, there's
people
two
died?
reasons
It's like,
that I think is being spoken quite openly about, and they totally make sense. Netanyahu benefits from chaos in the region
totally.
because it makes it easier for him to administer his own country and less money being made. So, you know, all that chaos actually benefits
Right.
them. And for Trump, he thought it would be Venezuela. He just thought it would be easy.
Right.
It's as
Because he's
simple as that.
not
I mean, he
smart.
thought he'd go in, kill all the leaders in one couple explosions.
So the
There were
new leader, which is the
Yes.
son of the Ayatollah who died, lost his wife, mother, and child in that same
And
attack.
apparently a few more this week. And he is apparently seriously injured, hasn't been
He
public
is.
yet.
He lost a leg or two legs. I'm not sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Anyways, but he said basically, yeah, that we're going all in on
Yeah.
the
He's
street,
mad.
right?
Yeah. It's
So
wild,
good, well
George.
done.
It's wild times. We got to take
Mhm.
care of each other. We got to take care of our neighbors. We got to definitely act local, think global, act local, do something nice
This is the
around your
thing.
neighborhood. Think of your Iranian
I
neighbors
know
here, right?
here and frankly in Iran, everywhere, most
Yeah.
people are all like us in the world. Just can
Yeah.
we just live our lives?
Can we
These
just,
politicians in Vancouver suing each other. We got crazy people blowing up in Iran. Come on, focus on what matters for us. Like, stop, you
amen,
nut
brother.
bars.
Can I say one thing off the back end here without identifying the person? It's not me. I was not in hospital, but I had reason to navigate the medical system in British Columbia in the last number of days at a very intense high level. And can I tell you, it was unbelievable care in an unbelievable, clean environment with the most thoughtful and wonderful and engaged and caring frontline healthcare workers beyond. I can't even tell you how impressed I was. Not a dollar changed hands, and nobody lost their house. Nothing was mortgaged. So when you want to complain about the healthcare system in our country, I would ask you to give pause. And somebody's going to come at me with how long they waited in emergency. And I'm telling you, you wait in emergency when you're not urgent. Because when my
Totally.
friend was
Yeah.
urgent, she was cared for immediately. And she's fine,
Yeah.
recovering. But wow, did I ever see it go down. So I just want to shout out to Mount St. Joseph in particular. Wow. Wow. Yeah.
You've had a week. You've had a week.
I've had a week. You know what, though? Looking forward to the comments on this one. George, people can find us on our social media. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram. On Twitter in particular, your handle is at George
Underscore.
Affleck, at George underscore Affleck underscore Affleck. At Jody-Vance, Jody with a Y. George Affleck and Jody-Vance on all the other social medias. Find us on YouTube if you want to see our smiling faces, or you can just listen anywhere you get your podcast. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. UnSpun Podcast comes to you every Thursday-ish. That's it, George. Bye.
Bye.